Hey guys, Agent Kyle here again today, and we're bringing you part 2 of Confessions of an Appendix Carrier. So it's been a little over a year, maybe coming up on a year and a half since my first Confessions of an Appendix Carrier video. If you haven't seen that, I really highly suggest you go and take a look at that. In that video, I discuss issues of the appendix carry and why I like it with the use of a one-piece rig. If you don't know, one-piece rigs happen to do something somewhat like this. This is all one piece put together in some way, shape, or form, so you cannot separate these without doing some minor deconstruction to your holster. So I really suggest that, not only because it's my video, but also it's really great for somebody who is considering appendix carry, as I stand up and show you where I carry, how I put the holster in. Very informative, and it's really meant for the maybe I should, but I want some more info about appendix carrying first. So with that said, let's move on to my 5 reasons why I'm confessing that I'm an appendix carrier. First and foremost, just like my first video, seated/driving. With this setup, it's actually still very, very comfortable. I did have to do a very small adjustment period to go ahead and figure out how to get the holster seated just right. So as you see, the gun is completely empty, decocked, we're good to go. So with a holster like this one, the setup is a little different. I had to kind of figure out and adjust how I carry, as well as how to incorporate a separated mag carrier, but I did this on purpose. And not only because I reached out to Hoplite and he sent this holster for me, but I felt like for the little bit of loyal followers I currently have, it was going to be an injustice to not show them how to carry with a different holster type. So would I like to switch back to a one-piece rig? Yeah, I think I probably would, and I don't really know whose I would go with. I definitely want something with 2 points of attachment instead of just a singular, but we'll talk about that here in a little bit further. So seated/car carry, still very, very comfortable, so big thumbs up on that one, as long as you figure out where to carry. Reason number 2, it's still super concealable. If you watched my first video, again, I had started to appendix carry my Glock 19, which is, oddly enough, similar sizes to this one, and I was selling it, so I didn't end up keeping it and sticking around for the long haul on that. I already had convinced in my mind that a double stack was just too big, so I need to go to a single stack. So even with that said, carrying a double stack gun, which is more or less a full-size grip, which there will be a video saying why I switched away from single stacks here in the future. But carrying this is actually very, very easy still. It's super concealable. The number one thing that aids in that is this concealment wing. And it doesn't have to be an RCS wing either. It can be more like a T-Rex arm style holster with their wings, or the QVO tactical, one of their Kydex style wings. It doesn't matter, but something with a wing to aid in concealment is really very helpful. So concealment is excellent with a double stack gun, as long as you have this little wing right there. So really, really easy to do all the same still. My third reason is appendix carry is still actually very safe as long as you're paying attention. In my other video about this gun, I addressed why I switched over from a Glock, which is a single stack in my case, striker fired safetyless gun, over to a single double gun, and part of those reasons are the safety. This double action trigger is extremely heavy, very, very long, so, and as you see, it is still in the clear. So when I actually go to reholster this gun, it takes a fair amount of pressure to get this hammer back to this point, and you can feel that, especially if you've got your finger on the hammer. Number one, if you press forward like this, and I'll show this again here in just a little bit, it's very hard to get this hammer to move at all. But even if you don't, if you're reholstering and you feel the pressure putting this in, because it's a 10-pound, 12-pound trigger still, you know something is up. So the safety is an extreme thing when it comes to appendix carry. You have to be very diligent, keep your finger away from the bang switch as we see here, but you just have to be very mindful when reholstering, and that's another reason why I switched over to a double single gun. But even then, as long as you pay attention and you make sure that there's nothing obstructing the trigger guard, appendix carry is very, very safe, even with a striker fired gun. Something that's going to be more of a single action style, like an XD series gun, which are mostly single action. Same with a SIG P320. Still, it is a striker, but as it's set, more of a single action. Same with the H&K, VP9 series, as well as the Walther PPQ. Just to name a few, they're striker fired, more of a single action style, because there's no uptake like the Glock on it. So very, very safe as well, as long as you're paying attention. So a downside though to appendix carry is still figuring out the restroom thing. It's I won't lie, it's kind of crappy. No pun intended. It's not all that great. If you're wearing pants with a button fly, it's very difficult to do because you have to kind of awkwardly stand there and look like you're playing with yourself as you're trying to figure out the buttons on this, because your fly happens to run anywhere over here typically, and the gun kind of gets in the way. You just kind of fumble. If you're doing it with a standard zipper fly, actually for a man it's very easy to do. If you're a female watching this, it's even easier. You go to the stall, take your gun off, put it in a place where you're not going to forget it. Big suggestion of that is to get a bright freaking pink gun, and this will be used in a little bit just because the contrasting colors. So you see the weapon is clear and empty, so using the restroom if you have to do a number 2 is very easy to do. But if you're a male standing at a urinal, it's still not all that great. You don't have to figure out how to somehow not keep your holster from falling when you undo your belt, but carrying strong side behind the hip, you just leave your belt all done up anyways. So appendix carrying, it's a little difficult when using a urinal still. I won't lie about that. So the other thing I don't really like as much about appendix carrying, and this is more or less true of this gun because of this area right here, is actually bending over. What I mean by that area is actually the beaver tail area. It kind of sticks out, and when you bend over, it can poke you just a little bit. And when I stand up here in just a little bit, you'll probably see a little bit of my person where I'm just a little red from not only the beaver tail poking me right there, but also this corner right there on the magazine. It is a little sharp. So bending over can definitely be a little more uncomfortable. So if we bring in for a comparison, empty chamber, empty mag, this XD, as we see here, it's flat along the beaver tail portion. There we go. It's completely flat, except for that little bit right there. But this actually carries much, much easier when bending over than the P07 because the beaver tail is non-existent on this XD. So we'll go ahead and set this back off to the side. But bending over can still be a little bit of a chore just because how you have to do that with a Glock or a SIG 320 HK. Anything minus the beaver tail is actually going to probably mitigate that to a massive minimum. This beaver tail just sticks out and hits you every single time. With that being said, I wouldn't knock the beaver tail off of this gun. It would be an awful lot to make me consider chopping it off and making it look a little bit more like an FN. So for now, beaver tail is staying. If I do lob it off, I will make another video as an update to this as to, hey, I knocked off my beaver tail and this is why. So, but I'm not expecting to have to do that. It's very comfortable to shoot with the beaver tail. So bending over is not always super comfortable. So we're going to go ahead and transition to standing to show you how I put this holster in and how I carry a 2-piece unit like this, and we will be back. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and show you how I put this holster on. It is summertime now, so I am wearing shorts, obviously, and there's no undershirt in this case. So, and again, kind of like I said in my last video, if you do have hair in this area, a little bit like I do, I'm not the hairiest guy out there, but I would recommend a full sweat guard. It's just, if you can manage to do a mid guard and just have your hair being pulled all day long, serious kudos to you. You're definitely more of a man than I am, but it's annoying and I hate it. So before we get too far into this, here is my wife's gun. It's going to be pink, so that way we can show some contrast up. And as you see, it is empty and empty. And we're just going to go ahead and decock it, put it back in the holster. And not like this one matters too much, but also empty mag. So how I kind of start this whole thing off is actually different belt placement. In my first video, my belt buckle, which is over here, was over here, and I overlapped it this way across my person. But when appendix carrying with this rig and with this particular belt clip style, which I will be switching these over to the pull-a-dot soft loops here in just a little bit. I did have one instance where I pulled my holster straight out. I'm like, okay, happens once, I'm done. I got to get new belt clips for this. So anyways, the holster is now over here on this side of my body, or not the holster, sorry, the belt. It wraps around here to the back, which is kind of weird at first, I won't lie. And usually what I do with this is I will have my belt buckle over here, and I see my pants are falling. My belt is really loose, very, very loose. So what I'll do with this is I will go ahead and get this in a medium looseness, and from here I will just push my buckle towards the side, effectively pushing this flat behind my back belt loop right there so it doesn't ever come undone. So that's how I set my belts up. If you have any another belt you want to use, I highly suggest off-centering your buckle someplace, depending on the kind of belt you're using. If you're using a leather belt and you feed it with your right hand, so again, this is going to be your left and my right. Leather belts, you feed it this way through your right hand, and then your tail follows this way. With these nylon style belts, the tail follows the other way, so you'll figure that out. But how I do this is I take my gun, and I'll go ahead and hold this here. I will, what would have been a magazine, I will load it, I'll rack it, decock, because it is a single action right now, reload my 15th round back into my magazine. I will then put my holster and my gun inside my holster, just like this. So now I mitigate the need to holster while carrying, and I will do this. I will go ahead and pull my shirt up, and from here, I'm going to insert my gun over here. While I'm doing this, I don't ever point it this way with a live gun. I actually try and bend back a little bit so that way my gun is pointed now this way. So if I do have a very unfortunate negligent discharge, it goes through my man parts, which is really unfortunate, but I'll still be alive. So from there, I grab my mag carrier, and then I go ahead and seat it over here. And on this one, kind of the same thing as I did on my CA holster. This clip is actually really fantastic. If you haven't seen my review on this, I really encourage it. So I'll go ahead and stick this in like this, and this one is, once it's in, it's solid. So this is kind of how the setup is once I get everything adjusted. And in my original video, I carried my gun centered. And in this setup, it's not all that comfortable. Because the gun is one piece, it just pushes directly into just your abdomen, and honestly, it's kind of hitting that part of your skin where it's just above your hot dog for YouTube sensory stuff. So it's not very comfortable. Carrying like this, there are actually two little pieces of your body right before they intersect with your legs. And I'll go ahead and throw an image of just your muscular system on the screen here in the corner for you. But the gun actually sits in that pocket right here before your legs. So it's super comfortable to carry this way. And I didn't think it would be. And I do have a very small minor hernia. I've had it checked out by the doctor, and he's like, well, hey man, if it doesn't bother you, it's an expensive surgery. Maybe I wouldn't suggest it at this time just because it's not bothering you. If it does bother you, get into us immediately and we can have that repaired. So it bothers me 2 days a year, and I told him that. Doctor said, it's your choice. I don't really feel like being out for the count for 6 weeks. So carrying right here is still extremely comfortable because it hits that pocket right where your legs are. So I still have full mobility in my legs. I can bring my leg all the way up like this. Squatting down is still pretty easy. As you saw there, if I do squat, I just give my belt a slight tug just to bring it up a little bit. But really, it's super, super comfortable. I do recommend with the claw, as you see right there, the claw. So when it comes to actually carrying this thing, a lot of people I see try and push your magazine and your gun as far away as possible. But when you do this, it doesn't sit in that natural little curve on your body. So go ahead and just pull them just a little close again, and you will feel it kind of sit in there. And after that, just give your shirt a light overhang like this. And even now, so as long as I stand up straight, it is kind of hard to see. And this is a more or less full-size gun. I mean, when I go to draw, you know, I get all my fingers on this gun. Absolutely. I'm never going to pinch myself. And then reholster, just make sure you cover the hammer so you can feel it move. So it's very easy to do. Stand up straight and then done, because your shirt overhangs this part of your body. If I do start to slouch, just like last time, you can kind of see it a little bit. The gun more than the holster or the magazine, just because the gun sticks out a little further. But stand up straight and you can carry probably a more or less full-size gun. So let's talk just a second about safety. So always, whenever you're carrying Appendix, you want to be very mindful of where everything is and reholster properly. So the other reason why I went to double action, single action, is I put my finger on my hammer. There's a new device out there for Glock. If I can remember what it is, I'll throw a photo of it as well as a small description. And that seems to be doing really well because you can safely reholster by covering your hammer like this. And then I just lean back a little bit. So I'm now angling the holster away from my body, and I have seated all the way, and we're good. So with that still, though, and this is primarily for lighter striker fire where you don't have a long double action pull. If something does happen to get into your trigger guard, so you know, as a finger, for example, I mean, there's a lot of pressure that needs to happen right there. But if I push and actually can cover my hammer, I can't really draw my hammer at all. So as long as you cover your hammer when reholstering, you should be good. And just you want to look down, make sure all your garments are cleared out of the way, give a nice reholster, stand up straight, completely concealed itself. So just like that. Honestly, carrying a two-piece rig like this is super, super comfortable. So one of the questions I did see though on Instagram whenever True Exodus posted his PO7 with his QVO tactical holster is, how can that be comfortable when seated? And the thing is, with a one-piece holster like this, if the bottoms are cut square, so that way the gun comes and connects right there, and your magazine comes and it's going to be up here, but the bottom is cut square, it actually rests very evenly against your abdomen, your lower abdomen, and it's very comfortable to carry. So we're going to go back to the review table now. Welcome back, guys. So as you saw, it's actually not all that difficult to go ahead and holster, unholster, reholster, do all your daily moving with a two-piece rig like this. As you saw how I have to carry, it is definitely more towards the center, not the center, sorry, the little gaps in your legs where, anatomy speaking, you just have pockets naturally built in. So that's kind of where I suggest carrying if you're going to carry a two-piece rig like this. I'm very interested to get a one-piece rig again to see if I can carry more in the direct center like that. So as I said in my standing video, I do have a very small hernia, and this is very comfortable to carry still, and part of that's done because I made sure when looking for my new carry gun that it met several criteria, and one of those being under 4 inches. So a separate video will be made, guys, talking about why the CZ P07 over anything else that's double single action. So there were several things that had to meet my criteria. So again, it's a different video for a different time. All in all, I really do enjoy Appendix carry quite a bit. The only things I don't really like about it are with this gun, because it is so much bigger than a single stack, it does print a little bit more. But I'm here to tell you, just hands down, nobody is looking at your gun. For all you new Appendix carriers or new carriers in general, don't be careless. Don't try and print. Don't tell people that you're carrying, but nobody's looking for it. In fact, I look for it sometimes with people when they wear certain articles of clothing, and I'm like, well, you're not carrying, and you're totally representing a large carrying group that you should be carrying, especially in my state, which is now permitless. So nobody's looking, okay? I promise, nobody is looking. If it's against your state laws to print, carry something smaller, please, okay? But in most states where it's not illegal, nobody's looking for your gun. It's just, that's the only thing about it. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like and subscribe. Also, share this with some of your friends who are against Appendix carry or are considering Appendix carry. I look forward to seeing you guys in the comments below. And seriously, if you have a question, please ask. I'm more than willing to answer. On my last video, one guy even said, quote, "What about taking a piss?" Question mark, unquote. And I answered him. I really enjoy the comments, and I'm definitely here to try and help you guys figure out the best means to do this for your body type. So anyway, guys, Agent Kyle signing off. Until the next time.